The Clean Power Hour is brought to you by Continental Energy Solutions. Check us out at cesnrg.com. I'm Tim Montague, your co-host. Today on the Clean Power Hour, Canadian Solar launches a 665-watt module. The Jobs Act is going to get broken down. We're going to explain it. New Mexico now has community solar. Rah, rah, rah. That's where I grew up. Love New Mexico. Kite Power is approaching commercial deployment. I've been watching this for 15 years. Tesla jacks the prices of solar roof. Well, I don't know. Apparently Elon thinks that's a good idea. What do you think, John Weaver, commercial solar guy and my co-host? Welcome to the show.
Timothy, how are you today? Hope everything is well.
Let's talk about Tesla solar roof. I know we weren't planning on that, but I mean, it's a premium product, so who cares? Kind of, right? If the price goes up $5,000 on a 40,000 installation, it doesn't matter. People who can afford the solar roof, I don't care. But what do you think?
So I half agree with you, half disagree. So I half agree, and it is a premium product. If it goes up, so be it. Also, it's still a project in development, so it's not real yet. So to say, oh, this is what we're going to pay for it, this is what it's going to cost, that's a challenge.
What do you mean it's not real?
Listen, it's not a final, it's a beta product. It's an alpha product. It's getting deployed, but it's not being deployed in mass by many, many people. It's slowly rolling out. It's still being refined. I would call it a beta 4. I don't know what the official value.
I think they're on version 4 of the solar roof.
Is it? I didn't know that. Okay. So that
they've
was
been
just
training. They're training a cadre of roofers to install the product and be certified installers, which is a great idea, because it is like putting a roof on, right? It's a solar roof. You need roofers. You need people that understand roofing and flashing and working around all those obstructions you see. It's a super slick looking roof. If I was buying a new house, I would love to have a solar roof.
But here's the key. Here's the key where I disagree. And I'm totally cool with the price going up. First off, it's his damn thing. He can do whatever he wants. But scroll to the top of this article. The contracts were already signed. That's the issue. He signed some contracts. He's now gone back and changed them. That is the only thing. Now, otherwise, and he's going to take crap for it. He's going to have to either pay those people back, cancel a deal, something. Otherwise, it's appropriate that a product like this will change its pricing during the evolution of the product, because it's not even a final product yet. That's my opinion. And with that, it's going to change. If it goes up and down in price, I don't really care about the absolute dollar amount. That's what life is. Things cost money. I don't pick a number. Have fun.
It's a 30% increase. That is kind of a large increase.
Cool. You can, from a consumer standpoint, you can say, oh, it's too expensive. Great. Awesome. See ya. That's cool. But from a contractual standpoint, there's a challenge there that I say, you're going to have to fix that, Elon. From a technology evolving standpoint, I actually expect this. And this is what should happen sometimes. Elon said, this is what I'm going to do. Whoops, messed that up. Let's scooch to the right.
Yeah.
Your Model 3 was, no, you got a Y, sorry. A Model 3 was supposed to be a $35,000 car.
Right.
I don't think they've ever sold one at $35,000.
It's more like a $45,000 or $50,000 car, right?
So am I against the Model 3 for that reason? No. We're at the front edge. We're not bleeding eyeball edge anymore. We're still leading edge, and we're still buying stuff from a dude who's figuring stuff out on the fly. And
all right. So while we're talking about Tesla, is the rumor that I heard true that the guy who's the CEO of Volkswagen was offered the job at Tesla to be Tesla's CEO, and it was almost a done deal? Is that true?
Well, I mean, I don't hang out with too many European rich people, so I don't actually know that answer at all. You're actually the first time I've heard that, and that wouldn't be surprising. I wouldn't be surprised if they wanted to bring in some sort of hardcore auto.
So if you're listening to this podcast, tell us, is it true that the CEO of Volkswagen was offered the job of CEO at Tesla? I would not be surprised, honestly. He came from BMW before he went to Volkswagen, and he's clearly passionate for the EV revolution and is helping Volkswagen come up, despite getting pushback, unfortunately, internally, because clearly the writing is on the wall, right? That is the future. If you're an automaker, you want to make electric vehicles. And so anyway, we got to love Tesla because they love to experiment. Sometimes they do stuff like this is a little wonky. It's not consumer friendly. And yes, it's going to cause waves, but it also gets them press. And that's the thing. I think Elon likes controversy. he just, he knows what is going to get eyeballs.
Well, I mean, he gets in trouble with his Twitter stuff, and his response is, "You wouldn't care about me if I was boring. So this is what you get, folks. This is your problem."
Right.
Yeah, I agree with it. Good job.
So let's talk about Canadian Solar. They made a splash just a couple days ago saying they're beginning mass production of a 665-watt module. I had Trina Solar on my show just a couple months ago, and they're bringing 550, maybe 600-watt modules to North America this year.
Mhm.
But 665, that's a big number for, 20 for April 2021.
So first, I got a question. Have you ever used any of these bigger panels? Like, have you ever? Because
The biggest we've installed is 400 watts, I think, John.
I same as myself. I've never done a ground mount, so a large ground mount. So I have no experience with these.
These are based on the 210 millimeter cell, which is the largest format cell in the market. There's been a splintering, right, of the sizes of the cells. You know
Yep.
more about this than me, but now there's this migration happening to larger cell sizes.
Hmm.
And so if you do a 72 cell, I mean, these are split cell modules.
This isn't a 72 cell panel. This is like a 80,
Yeah.
90. These are heavy panels. These are 2-person panels. These are, these are going to be, I'm trying to look for some specs there, but you notice the efficiency is 21.4%. That 400-watt panel you have from like Hanwha, it's not that far behind that 21. So
Right.
this is a physically bigger panel. It's probably a 90 or 85 equivalent solar cell. So they're bigger, they're different. I was reading something on PV Magazine this morning. They had a good long list of every reason it's a challenge to use these new mixed match of modules that are coming out. And so I'm intimidated. First time I'm going to have to deal with it, it's going to be like, oh, this is all new. I hope my team around me knows everything first because it's coming and we're going to have to learn more.
I feel bad, honestly, for the racking companies, right? Because this has got to be a nightmare, whether you're making trackers or fixed tilt racking, rooftop racking, whatever you're making. This is a nightmare, honestly, I think. And that's where somebody needs to advocate for some standardization. Go 4x8, people. Go 4x8. This is America. We like that 4x8 footprint. I'm okay with larger format. If we can move sheets of plywood around and sheets of sheetrock around, why can't we move solar panels?
That's a super logical number. Super logical number. The
Maybe I should be
Trina,
the CEO of a solar panel company.
listen, Tim, I got your back. If you need a resume, let me know. Or a recommendation, let me know. I'm there
I
for
got
you.
to go get an electrical engineering degree first, I'm afraid, but
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
all right. Well, let's move along. Project of the week. Oh, it's our new segment. Project of the week. Saudi Arabia. $1.04.
No.
One penny
Cent.
and 1 penny and 400ths of a penny, right?
Yes.
Per
Yes,
kilowatt hour record price. What's the story, John? I'm gonna put this on screen.
So first off, there's always dynamics because Saudi Arabia has unique rules. For instance, there's no interconnection costs. There's free land. Somebody once told me that in Saudi Arabia, they paid the labor for the first year at a project as an incentive. So the
But what,
rules in Saudi.
give our listeners a little background. What are we
Okay.
talking about here?
So
And why is this a thing? Why is this a big deal?
This is the lowest price ever for a long-term power purchase agreement for a solar power project. It's just over a penny per kilowatt hour.
Yep.
It's one of 6 or 7 projects totaling 3.5 gigawatts. And this project is 600 megawatts. And it was the lowest. There were a couple of other projects within the overall round that also had super low pricing, including one at like 1.2 cents, which would be the second lowest price ever. So first, this is the lowest price ever for a contract that's been publicized for a big solar power project. 1 cent, almost 1 cent per kilowatt hour. It's awesome. But just be conscious when you start thinking about these numbers that the rules are different everywhere. There's no incentives for solar in Saudi Arabia, like no tax credit that I know of. But what they do is that the nation, the country of Saudi Arabia, they give the developer as much as they can to get the price as cheap as they can. There's no interconnection costs. I don't think they have to pay for land. Like there's no grid upgrade costs. Those two things and land, those are huge costs. They don't
How
have to
can
worry
they
about
not
it.
have to upgrade the grid to attach so much solar to the grid? Like,
Well, no. They don't have to pay for the upgrade. Saudi
okay.
Arabia pays for the upgrade in a
So
different
it's like a
account.
public-private partnership?
And that's another dynamic. So there's something called inter-party risk, and this is what happens on big projects where you have, you got Saudi Arabia selling to Jinko and Yingli, and Mitsubishi is going to own the project. So between these people don't trust each other by default. Their lawyers don't. They can't. It's not how the world works. And so there's risk between them. And so Mitsubishi's like, will Saudi Arabia pay us for the electricity? Will Jinko build the project right? And they'll argue, and some banker is going to add a little bit of money to the loan rate and say, okay, because of risk, we need an extra 25 basis points on this loan. I don't actually know what the real numbers are at all, so don't ask me. I'm just making stuff up. But in Saudi Arabia, it's Saudi Arabia who's going to own the project, buy the electricity from itself, and then sell it. So the loan is different, and the loan might not even have interest because this is Islamic finance. So the dynamics of how a banker would look at a deal are different than how your customer's banker will look at a deal, Tim, because you're a contractor who's normal. The utility might go under, the business owner might go under, the landowner might go under, and then lawyers might get involved. So everybody prices in some risk in their loan. In Saudi Arabia, it's them buying from themselves. So there's just different dynamics when you have the Saudi prices, when you see the price from Qatar, from the Emiratis. These places have different dynamics with their oil cash, with how they do things, with how they're developing their nation state. They're not capitalists.
Do they drive Maseratis and Emiratis? You're damn straight they do.
Thank you, Timothy. I'm sure they do. So on the one hand, this is sweet. This represents cheaper pricing, so it still does represent a relative price drop. So that's a valuable thing. The last time the Saudis had a price, it was 1.4, 1.5, 1.35. I don't know the exact record Saudi number recently, but now it's lower by 20%, by 30%. It's lower. That's what matters, and that's the true thing that we can really see. Just don't try to get a penny on your own projects just yet, Tim. You might have a finance challenge.
Well, we're 0.04 of a cent away. How, that can't be hard, right?
Well, not maybe in Illinois it could be a challenge. Massachusetts, it'll definitely be a challenge.
Oh yeah, in Illinois, so some context here, a 2 megawatt AC PPA would be 3 cents and change, maybe 3.5, maybe 4 cents. And
But that comes with an SREC.
sorry?
That comes with an SREC though, right?
Comes with an SREC, right? You can't
Yeah.
get there without an SREC, and the SREC is 3 cents.
Yeah. So
Um,
6 cents is really 7 cents is really what people are taking. New York, it's like it's a little bit higher with their VETR program, but that's what for these smaller projects, 2 to 10 megs. It seems you got to be in the middle up. You got to be in the upper single digits in order to make them pencil. So that's
well,
you
this
know,
is the bane of my existence, that without subsidies, and all energy is subsidized, and we're completely in denial in our culture about how much fossil fuels are subsidized.
mhm.
When you start to look under those covers, it's horrifying how much money society pours into fossil fuels. But without subsidies, solar in Illinois and across the Midwest is very challenged because we have cheap, dirty energy.
Yep.
The good news is that the utilities are starting to see that the economics of wind, solar, and storage make sense long term, and they're driving the transition from coal, oil, natural gas to wind, solar, and storage. That's the larger, I mean, like we have a 3 megawatt goal with our current PPA. I mean, our renewable portfolio standard in Illinois. 3 gigawatts of solar. That's the goal. That one Saudi PPA is what we're trying to do here in all of Illinois. I don't know how big Saudi Arabia is compared to Illinois, but maybe similar sized. And so
34 million people, so about 5 times larger than Illinois. Was there 10 million Illinois?
3 times. Yeah, we've got like 13 million.
Oh, yep, 13. There you go.
Yeah, but anyway, so let's talk about the Jobs Act. I found a nice story out of Extensible Energy, and I had
They're good people, by the way. I've met them. Tor helps market with them. I don't know if you know Tor, guy with the red hat. If we ever go to a conference again.
Absolutely. And hold on just a sec.
Yeah. I do like how they broke it down, because it is such a big thing and it is a complex document. So I'm glad you found a crib notes version of it that's focused on what we do, because it's a long set of documents. And I hear that the House will actually see the document starting this week or next week, the actual beginning of the legislation, which is really interesting.
Yeah. So Deepa Lounsbury at Extensible Energy wrote a blog post for Extensible Energy, Cliff Notes version of Biden's infrastructure plan, what it means for solar and load flexibility. And
by the way, Extensible Energy specifically, their focus is load flexibility. If anybody ever needs somebody to help super duper manage their demand charges, there's a good company for that.
Yes. Yeah. We had Extensible on the show, and they make a product called Demand X. The problem is that you have to search on EX, not just X. So Demand EX is the product, and it's a software solution basically, right, for controlling building management systems and telling the air conditioner to shut off at a certain time to reduce your peak load, to do peak shaving, basically. It's a very smart thing. It's very difficult because there's a lack of standardization in these building control systems today. But I'm glad that John and company there at, I believe his name is John. I can't remember his last name now. Who's the CEO of Extensible Energy? Tor's just completely freaking out right now.
He's so mad at us. John Powers, you were close.
John Powers, yes.
What a good name for a energy guy.
It's true.
John Powers.
So here's the Cliff Notes, the bullets though. $100 billion for electric grid, solar, and clean energy. $100 billion for public school upgrades, plus $12 billion for community college upgrades. Okay, so we want to support our education infrastructure. Federal procurement of 24/7 clean power for federal buildings. The federal government is a major procurer of energy, right? So if they can go clean, that's going to be a good thing. Clean energy R&D, creation of ARPA-C and other programs. Yes, I'm super pumped about ARPA-C. I'm a huge fan of ARPA-E, and ARPA-D before that, right, is still an R&D army, really, right, of scientists and researchers around the country developing next generation technologies for the armed forces. And then they created ARPA-E, dedicated to energy technology, so next generation battery technology. We definitely need to step on that gas because China's eating our lunch. And now ARPA-C, how do we get carbon out of the atmosphere, basically, right? Loads of runway there. And no, you can't just plant trees, people. That is the mantra that so many people throw at us when we have these stories. And I'm an ecologist. I was a forest ecologist before I was a solar geek. I love trees, but we cannot plant our way out of this crisis. We have to more rapidly pull carbon out of the atmosphere. Planting trees is part of the solution. Don't get me wrong. We want to reverse deforestation. We want to stop deforestation and plant trees. Huge fan of that, but that's not going to be enough.
Agree. 1 trillion trees is a good headline, but it's not the solution.
Yeah. It's unfortunate. I wish we could just plant our way out of it. That would be like super easy, right? I like easy.
Then we'd have more tree houses. Sorry, Tim.
You're funny.
That was to make up for your Maserati joke.
So, can we talk about New Mexico?
So you're from New Mexico. I didn't know that. I think you've
Yeah,
mentioned that before, though.
I'm a nowhere man, John. I was born in Indiana, but my family moved to New Mexico when I was 2 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So I spent 12 years from 2 to 14.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not from New Mexico. I grew up in New Mexico until I was 14. And then I moved to New Jersey. And I went to high school in New Jersey, and my dad still lives there. And I like parts of New Jersey, but I'm not an East Coast guy. Basically, I'm a Midwesterner. Culturally, I fit in better in the Midwest. And so that's where I keep coming back to. I've also lived in California, but here I am.
New Mexico. So have you gotten into the details of this program yet? Is it still too early? I remember seeing a lot of pushback from the locals, the utilities, and even senators after the governor, after they said, hey, we're going 100% clean. And because this was like a year or two ago when they came out with that.
Yeah.
I'm wondering about this program. You know, community solar now interests me because I'm doing it to a degree. So it's I watch it.
Yeah.
What do you think about it so far?
Yeah, so I don't know. I don't truly know, John, how good a program this is in the works in New Mexico, but I know that the developers are working hard on developing community solar projects. And let's face it, New Mexico has wonderful solar resources, right? It's right up there with Arizona, some of the best solar resources in the country, and some wonderful manufacturers like Array Technologies are born and bred in Albuquerque. And so there's a long history of solar technology coming out of the state. So it just makes perfect sense. Here it says they have a 5 megawatt capacity. I like 5 megawatts. I think we have a 2 megawatt AC or 3 megawatt DC market here in Illinois. I think that's a little too diminutive. It's so much work to permit, et cetera, a project like this, get it interconnected. I say go 5. That's what the main market is, isn't it? A 5 megawatt market?
5 megawatts for Maine, 5 megawatts for the Massachusetts, for New York, for
Yeah.
Pennsylvania.
Yeah. So, I mean, the bad news is there's only runway for 40 projects here, it looks like 200 megawatts across the state. The state has 3 IOUs, investor-owned utilities. So, it's a start. At least there's a community solar program now, and we'll see. But it seems legit. And yes, New Mexico put a stake in the ground last year with 100% RPS, which my own state of Illinois has yet to do. So kudos to them. And remind me, what is Massachusetts' plan to get to 100%?
Well, so they recently signed a 100%, very, very, very recently, like within the last month or so, and it's a net zero by 2045. I think with all renewable electricity by 2035 or 2040 or so. And they're now starting to talk aggressively about how they're going to manage the price of gas and gas going away, and they're expanding their offshore wind a lot. But it's very recent that the official 100% legislation was signed. Before they had a 1% per year RPS, 1 additional % per year. So it's like the year 2080, they would have hit 100%, something like that. Obviously, too late. So it's a new law that just came out, still learning it. It's got a lot of nuance, but now I think it's net zero by 2050, clean electricity by like 2040. I don't think it's 2035, but they also have a no new cars to be sold as ICE by 2035. So they're attacking transportation and electricity electricity aggressively. Transportation is getting going now.
Yeah. Right on, right on. I'm chomping at the bit to get 100% RPS in Illinois. I don't know what the holdup is. Our governor issued a white paper over a year ago saying we're going to do 100% RPS.
Why RPS though? Why not clean
That's-
CPS? Why not a clean power standard instead of renewable? Because you guys got all that
Yeah,
nuclear.
we have 50% of our grid power is nuclear.
Yeah.
We
So
have
I
a,
would
we
say
have a
clean standard.
yeah.
Versus,
So you can get there if like California did, right, with their clean power standard. They did that, right? That's
yeah,
nuclear is part of the California plan.
technically, but they're closing down their last nuclear plant in 2025.
Oh, is that the last one? Because they just closed one too, right?
Yeah, yeah. This
Near
is
San Diego,
Diablo. Yeah,
Diablo Canyon.
yeah.
Um,
Diablo's north, and that one's going to shut down, I believe, by 2025. They say they're going to need 10 gigs of capacity to offset it, and then a huge volume of energy storage separately, but 10 gigs of solar and wind or whatever.
Yeah.
And then, of course, tools to manage it 24/7.
And so I don't want to dwell too much on this, but here in Illinois, when we got clean energy legislation, our first major clean energy legislation in 2016, it went into force in 2017. It funded equally the nuclear industry and wind and solar. 200 and some $million a year going into keep Clinton and Quad Cities open. Clinton is a 1 gigawatt plant 50 miles from my house. And then Clinton is up near Quad Cities on the Iowa-Illinois border. And now Exelon, I think, is the sole owner of all of this pretty big fleet. It's like 11 nuclear power plants in Illinois. Now they're looking for subsidies for several other, including Braidwood, where we have a solar plant coming out of the ground called Keeversville that we're building for Summit Ridge Energy, which we'll talk about in future episodes. But so yeah, nuclear can be part of the mix, and the only problem is that that fleet of nuclear power plants is now 30 plus years old. Some of them are more than 40 years old. And it's a big steel and concrete machine that does wear out. It's not that you can't keep it open, but they're non-economical compared to new wind, solar, and storage. So yeah, I'm good with keeping them open for a period, but let's not sacrifice the growth of the wind and solar. Like we have a complete bust right now in Illinois, John. The wrecks are all dried up for the moment, and it could literally be 2 years, even if they pass legislation this summer, it could be 2 years before those wrecks hit the street. That's the nature of that beast. It takes a while, right? So please, Governor Pritzker, let's get going. All right, we've got a good story about some wind power technology. I'm going to put a video on screen here.
So you made a joke about it, saying you've been waiting for it to commercialize for 15 years. I'm not a bleeding edge guy. I'm a cutting edge guy. I'm a science fiction person. And so I think what's happened to me is that because of my 9 to 5 life, having to feed myself, unless it's real and getting built, I'm just not the guy. Like if you want somebody who's chasing SMRs, new nuclear reactors, tidal power, space stuff, you got to give me a nice base salary. Otherwise, I'm a scared little entrepreneur who only wants to sell things that he can sell. So do you what do you really think Sky Power, like Sail Power, Kite Power is going to like work?
What I love about this photo is there's nice ground mount and rooftop solar in the background here. Now, whether this kite power technology is going to take off or not, Google also has a kite, for lack of a better expression, a kite power technology company called Makani, which has been going nowhere fast. So I don't know. This is a pilot project that's under development. And I think this is what you see here is a 200 kW power plant. So it's not a big power plant. I think it's cool. Will it compete with traditional wind turbines? I don't know. Obviously somebody thinks it will, but obviously they've got to get the price down. And there's some wind turbines in the background. So obviously there's some place where there's good, you've got to have good wind resources. And I can see how building the foundation for this, though, John, is much easier than building a foundation for a wind turbine, right? You just need to build a pad, whereas with the turbine, you got to build like a 20-foot deep foundation, a big ass concrete foundation. I think the foundation for this can be smaller. I don't truly know how deep it has to go, but and what is interesting is it's really the winding in and out in this technology of how they're generating. So they're constantly letting the kite out, collecting it in a battery, and then discharging it when they uh, wind it back in. But
I'll say this, it's kind of neat. I mean, that's a real image right there. And that's kind of cool just seeing it there. I mean, this is I don't know, just kind of neat looking. Definitely like that. Oh, look at that. Oh wow. SkySails Power. Cool. Oh, you can deliver it by truck. Of course you
yeah,
can.
yeah.
Got to think about the manufacturing of it. Huh.
And so here they're showing the
Ah,
offshore version. And
interesting.
what I need to see is the side by sides. Okay, so you're basically building an offshore platform just like you would for offshore wind. How does that compare? Because if you're going to go through all that trouble of building a platform, why not just stick a traditional turbine on it? What is the advantage of doing the kite versus the traditional turbine? I haven't seen that analysis.
And by the way, I just looked it up. Google, as of about a year ago, started shutting down their kite division.
Yeah, I don't think Makani made it off the ground.
Nope.
Pun intended.
Okay.
Oh well, and Makani was started by Saul Griffith, who is involved with the Electrify Everything. What is that called? Rewire America.
Nice.
Saul Griffith is behind Rewire America. I didn't manage to get Saul on the show, but I got some of his colleagues to come on. All right, you tell me what is the next story we're going to cover, John?
I like the battery story. So SK, I don't know if we talked about it on here, but a little while back, SK got in trouble. They lost a lawsuit that said that they committed technology fraud, patent fraud, or whatever, violated the patents of LG. SK is a giant battery manufacturer. LG is among the biggest. And initially, they were blocked from building a factory in Georgia. And this would have been a factory to feed Ford. And so Ford obviously needs somebody to build their batteries because they're not a battery company. Only one car company that I know of is also a battery company. And so this was a big thing for Georgia. I saw some headline that said it might have been the largest individual investment in Georgia history, this factory. And so suddenly SK wasn't allowed to work in the US. Then, and if you check out the second, and so they came to a settlement. And there you see it on the screen from the local press. You know, they got to pay a trillion won in cash and a trillion won in royalties. That's
$1.78 billion.
Yep. Well, almost 2 billion bucks. So close, big number. And now SK can work in the US. And I thought it was neat that we got to see in the other article a little bit of the back and forth that went on with this new senator in the state of Georgia. His name is Jeff Ossoff. And he apparently was the person pushing it and getting a little bit of reaction and getting people going. So good job, Jeff. You helped keep a battery factory in your country and in your state. And you know, let's keep that spinning because we're gonna need to make a lot of batteries, dude. A lot of batteries are gonna need to be made. And you don't want to ship that big chunk of metal over the globe because it's a big, healthy, heavy piece of metal.
So SK stands for South Korea. I was not familiar with the SK brand, but apparently they're a big battery company. And LG is also a Korean company, right? So it's two
Yes.
Korean companies that are fighting amongst themselves. And
Yep. So
and
pretty big, pretty big.
and so they're building or they have built a
Building,
factory.
building. They're about to build. They
Okay.
were ready to do it. Now it's time to work on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that article you have is our next article, the one you just had up on the screen.
Oh, that is not related to the SK story?
No, you got to look at there's two links for the SK story. There's the Korea Herald, and then right below it there's an AJC. There you go.
Oh, I hit the wrong link.
Yes.
You got to
So much
correct me
news.
sooner, dude.
Well, I thought we were going to go to that article, and I was already anticipating talking about it, so I was okay with that.
Okay, so this is actually the photo of the plant under construction.
I guess, yeah, because I was pretty certain it was under construction. So yeah, so that looks at it. So 2,600 people, and you see that guy Jeff Ossoff. He's a gentleman on the right with his hand up. Those are the two senators who recently won in Georgia in the most recent election, and apparently he was flying and calling people for like 2 weeks, just like bam, bam, bam. And apparently he's the one that may have gotten the CEO of LG to say they'll let them move forward, let them do something. So good job, Mr. Senator. I mean, that's really what a senator should be doing, if anything. It should be bringing jobs to the locals by fighting for them for good jobs. I mean, and so I guess Ossoff, he's going to get some votes. If he was my senator, he'd buy right now. He'd have a big halo over his head, just because that's good work. That's hard work. So good job, Jeff.
Georgia, what a strange place, huh?
Georgia.
My grandfather had a factory in Georgia, in a town called Carrollton, Georgia. 2 R's, 2 L's. My brother was born there.
Nice.
My grandfather moved his factory from Pennsylvania to Georgia to escape unionization of his factory that was happening in Pennsylvania. He was in the cloth printing industry. So anyway, I have an attachment to Georgia because of my family history there. But politically, what's going on in Georgia is crazy town, right? They're making it difficult for people to vote. That is just a bad idea in a democracy. And corporations are starting to wake up to that and pushing back on that crazy townness because they see that that's not good for America. And but it's not all bad, right? We have good people in Congress like Mr. Ossoff. So, all right. So our next story: U.S. solar and wind acceleration not enough to meet Biden's climate targets. I actually really like this headline, John, because it refers to the Biden administration putting a line in the sand saying we're going to get to net zero by 2035. I've mistakenly said 2050, but the goal of the administration is 2030 or 2035. Yeah.
Specifically, though, for electricity is the 2035.
Correct.
So that's key. But
to decarbonize the grid by 2035.
Yeah.
So 14 years from now. It's totally doable. Check out the 2035 report out of Berkeley and company, and there's legit science behind that. So what's the story here, though?
So they just went into the numbers of what they really need to hit in order to do this, and they have a guesstimate that we need to have, that those volumes you have right there. Well, bigger than those volumes. Right now, we have estimates of 287 gigs of solar, 115 gigs of wind coming, which are big numbers. I mean, really amazing numbers. And 25 gigs per year for the next year. So we're going to get like at least 100 over the next 4 years. We're probably going to get a little more. We need to like double that. I mean, and it's already, I'll tell you what, Tim, I get so stressed trying to learn things and keep up with things. And we're going to have to do everything different because, we'll have our jobs, but there's just going to need to be some massive volumes of things rolled out. And it's going to be utility scale on a massive level, 2/3 of it, 3/4 of it probably. But there's going to need to be more local solar. There's going to need to be more rooftop, more parking lots. And we're going to need to double the volume, 70 gigs.
Yeah.
So 70 versus 43.
So we need 70 gigawatts of wind and solar per year starting in 2025 for 10 years in order to reach a clean grid by 2035. The current plan is 43 gigawatts. So it's almost falling short by a factor of 2. And that is frustrating, but it is also important that we do this math and figure out, okay, so we need to do a course correction. We need to actually step on the gas here. And I think we need robots that can install ground mount solar 24/7. That's really what I think it's going to take. I don't think we have enough skilled labor in this country to install all those solar panels that we need to install. And it's not that I want the robots to take all these jobs. It's a both and. I want to grow the economy. I want to continue to bring people into the skilled trades. We need lots of pipe fitters and welders and steel workers and operators and electricians and laborers. We need all these skilled trades, and we need robots.
You know, you saying that's real interesting, because the next story I wanted to share is one of the first true innovations in installation technique that I've ever seen. And I think it's kind of cool. So first off, there's we've talked about Australia and that they have a few giant projects, and there's this one project they're planning on exporting the electricity to Singapore via a 3,800 mile submarine cable. Well,
Yeah.
the project I think is going to get like 20 gigs of solar and 15 of wind. I don't know the exact numbers, but one detail is that it's so big, they're going to build a factory right there to feed it. And it's the technology of the factory that I wanted to chat about. But I mean, here's the technology that they're planning on using. It's a product made by a company called 5B.
Yep.
And I think this is the type of product that a robot, if your land was already prepped, can amazingly install with.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is
immediately
very
deliver.
interesting because this stuff gets put together in the factory. The panels get mounted on the racking system, and then it just rolls out like a ginormous accordion, right, onto the field. So very interesting, very innovative technology. Works great for desert land. I don't know if I would want to put this in the fields and farms of Middle America, but in some locations for sure. I'm a fan of this. Very low to ground and very fast, theoretically deployable solar racking system.
Mhm.
The factory, when they talk about the factory, it's not actually solar panels that they're making. It's more of the racking system, right?
Well, technically, I don't know, but I'm pretty certain that it's the racking. It's combining. It's bringing all the hardware together and then outputting these things on a rack. And if you check out the next link that I put there, there's actually a video of them rolling a system out. But I do think the factory is an assembly facility for all the components, not making solar panels itself.
Yeah. So the
Uh,
company is 5B, and Maverick is the project, or what is, because the Maverick, that name Maverick is used a lot also.
I think the product model is called the Maverick. Yeah. So that's just the product line the marketing people came up with because
Okay.
it's cool.
I'm gonna
Yeah,
I'm
check
gonna
it out.
I'm gonna go back to the beginning of that video. So here is the 5B racking system. I call it the accordion, and you'll see why. So they're just using a skid steer, right, to pull the accordion.
Somebody
There's
just
an analogous racking system, John. Have you ever seen the PEG racking system, PEG?
Yes, I have.
Yeah,
Yes, I have.
that's out of Germany, and they have a North American operation now. So they're trying to sell the PEG into the US. And this is, at the end of the day, it looks very similar. It's a little higher off the ground, maybe a meter off the ground, but it's a low to ground east-west racking system that is frankly very similar, just not the accordion. It's not factory installed like this.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, in theory, is installed in a factory, which I like. I like being able to install under controlled conditions. We try to do 15% of our construction in the warehouse.
Wow, that's neat. That's really cool.
It's very challenging, and sometimes the IBEW doesn't cooperate because the IBEW has, in some jurisdictions, has rules that you can't do off-site manufacturing. But so then we set up a tent. But
Yep.
and Elon has proven that you can do a lot under a tent.
Yeah, apparently you can. You can build cars, you can build rockets and all kinds of weird stuff.
Yep. But I'm glad that you brought this 5B to our attention, because this is truly the future of solar. For large scale solar, it's a both and, John. You know, my colleagues in the residential and DG space sometimes get their feathers ruffled about utility scale solar. They're like, oh my God, the utility scale developers want to, take over the industry, so to speak. And I'm like, no, it's a both and. We need utility scale, we need DG. They both make sense. They're both good for people. They're both good for the grid. It's totally a both and.
It is true though that the utility guys do want to take over. Whether they will, the politicians and the salespeople will dictate that answer. But without a doubt, utility scale people want to control stuff, and not all of them, of course, but nice, healthy chunk. So, what do you think about this story from Wyoming?
I don't know. What's the story?
Wyoming wants to
I'm
protect.
trying to get past the pop-ups that the Denver Post is throwing at me.
Oh,
I don't know if we're going to get to the story.
you may not. I actually read this on somebody who has a subscription to them, so we might not be able to see it here. But I'll give you the high level. Oh, you got to hit the back button. You already lost the article. You're gone. There you go. You can't click on the sides. It'll boot you. You got to stay in the middle. There's right down the middle lane.
So what's the story? Just tell us what the story is.
So the story is that Wyoming has its legal team or its politicians are putting away money specifically so they can sue other states that make laws against dirty electricity. So they're saying, listen, you are hurting our state rights by making your own laws. And we now have $1.2 million to start suing you people. So,
yeah,
I mean, the way you just got to put it is, well, you obviously don't believe in state rights. So, let's make sure we back away from that and have fun. I mean, that's it. I don't know where to go with it. I just thought this was this is a law that's been submitted. I don't think it could actually get anywhere.
Yeah, this monkey business has been tried. It was tried around the election as well with the election results, right? Texas tried to pass a law that was going to somehow disqualify elections in other states. I'm just like, no, it doesn't work that way.
Yep.
And honestly, I can't wait to go cruising around Wyoming, just for the raw nature and beauty of the place. And I've only passed through Wyoming on my way to Colorado and California and other places. But yeah, I can appreciate them wanting to protect their coal industry. Coal is a major industry in Wyoming. It is horrific, though, for the environment, and there is no future for coal. That's the thing. We see the writing on the wall. It's no accident that all of these companies, like Peabody Coal, for example, have gone out of business. Another personal aside on this, my family, my mother's father and his father ran the Black Diamond in Chicago, which was a coal industry publication. Coal is in my blood. Illinois is a coal state. I live not far from coal country here in central Illinois. We have a ton of coal. We have 50 more years of coal in the ground, but it's dirty coal and it needs to stay in the ground if we're going to stop global climate change. And that's true for Wyoming as well. It's not as dirty. The coal in Wyoming is cleaner, but there's no future for coal. Focus on tourism. Build a great EV charging network, Wyoming. I will come visit in my Cybertruck with my Cyber Camper and spend money in your state, but there's no future for coal. The economics aren't there. People like to pick on wind and solar, John, as a cause of the decline of coal. No, the demise of coal was that we have cheap natural gas. right?
Yep.
And
Absolutely.
and now there's, I mean, the gas industry is in trouble too. It's not just coal, but fracking has been an economic boom and bust, and there's a lot of monkey business in that industry. So I'm sorry, you have to go with the times. We didn't stop using whale oil because whales went extinct. We stopped using whale oil because we discovered oil in the ground. And so there's always this march of technology, and now we have the technology that is cheaper and cleaner, and we also realize, like, duh, we've been changing the atmosphere for 100 plus years, and we've got to stop doing that, and we got to step back from the brink of complete climate chaos. We are already in the midst of it, but there's no reason to not step back, right? So got to do it. You struck a chord, John.
Yep. Yep. Reading it stressed me out. It's like, really, we're gonna waste our time. We're gonna waste our resources. Whatever. You people have fun.
Okay, so we're going to talk about California and then a baby getting warmed up with solar power. I imagine like a baby in a little spacesuit with solar panels on it, but we'll see what that's about. Um, New all-time max solar production on California ISO, Cal ISO.
Yeah. So the chart you're seeing here is just the peak number for front of the meter. So utility scale, big stuff. And it broke 13 gigawatts. Oh, well, actually, you know what's funny? This is a few minutes before the peak was hit. This number itself is a new record, but then it broke 13 gigawatts a little bit later in the day or at some
Yeah.
point.
Yep.
And that was the record high for California. First time it's been over 13 gigawatts. And you see that nice, beautiful orange curve there. And then, though, in California, this 13 gigs, this is front of the meter stuff that the large utility manages. Behind the meter is another 10 gigs installed, which I've been told by a group named Catalyze that roughly 8 gigawatts peak from it. So 13 plus 8 equals 21 gigawatts of solar output on the California power grid.
I mean, what's surprising to me about this is the relative scale of the solar PV to the other technologies. It's just, I didn't realize that there was way more solar than wind at utility scale in California. Um, and yes, 10 gigawatts of DG solar. I had Bernadette Del Chiaro on my show last week
She's awesome.
talking about the fight for net metering. So if you're interested in net metering, and if you're not having a net metering fight in your state, you will have one. So watch what's going on in California and how they're fighting it, because the utilities are trying to crush net metering, which crushes the economics of solar for consumers and for business owners. And it's just wrong and it's bad. So check out calssa.org and get in that fight, because it's a fight worth fighting.
I agree.
PV is the shit though, dude. I love it.
And so I like this last one because I like distributed energy. I like the whole concept of places being able to build up from a distributed nature as the city designs versus as the power lines need. And it's just a picture of a baby. So there's no cool spacesuit. But what really matters, though, is the note there. It's that there's now solar in this place helping kids to be healthily born. And when you have lighting and clean water and everything going on at night, it just changes things. You have consistency in medical support, and solar helps that happen in small places that the world has ignored to generate energy for, because they're not cost effective. Because we can't build a giant.
Aren't there a billion people without electricity in the world, John? There's a lot of people still that don't have a grid giving their homes, businesses, clinics, etc., regular electricity. And so wind and solar and batteries are the answer DG is the answer, right? To these places that don't have a grid, you just create a microgrid, and then you have electricity, and that, of course, is going to make for much better health care and solar warmed babies.
So 1.2 billion estimated living without electricity. That's
Yeah.
like that's 16% of the world. That's pretty much California with no electricity as part of the United States. We'll just boop, no power there.
Right.
That's scary. That's tough. I mean, we live in a very different modern world. We have our challenges, but having electricity is an amazing thing. It really is. So that's it. I think babies getting electricity is a great way to finish up my suggestions of things to talk about, Tim.
Yeah. So, how can our listeners reach you, John Weaver?
Well, being as how things are very stressful and hard working, if you come down to the Cork pub, you might find me drinking a beer outside. But otherwise, you can just type in commercial solar guy into Google or Twitter or LinkedIn, and you'll find us. That's my website where I like to do news and just have some contact info up. But
Why don't you have a link to Whaling City here anywhere? I don't understand that.
we will soon enough. There's a lot of links I should have. For instance, we have a residential tab, but it goes to the time when we were selling residential through Commercial Solar Guy.
Okay.
But that's switched. So really, this button should go straight to Whaling City Solar. But I got some work to do. There's a lot of work I could do on the website, but right now I get a lot of inbound calls. I don't even have time to do outbound. That stresses me.
Yeah.
But it does so far. It does something.
Well, it's a rough life being in the heart of one of the hottest solar markets in America. So, kudos and congratulations. And I, Tim Montague, can be found at cesnrg.com/podcast. And you can find all of our content here at the Clean Power Hour at that same URL, cesnrg.com/podcast. We bring you one episode of the Clean Power Hour. Today it's publishing on a Friday, but usually we publish on a Wednesday. So check it out. And then the Solar Podcast, where we bring you one-on-one interviews with thought leaders like Jim Spano from Spano Partners Holdings in New Jersey, like Mike Casey at TigerCom talking about reducing soft costs, like Andy Klump at Clean Energy Associates, and all the things that Andy is bringing to the world, like third-party verification of products being manufactured in 55 different countries around the world. And then again, reducing soft costs. Check it out. Tom Tansey at Sunspec Alliance. And as I mentioned, Bernadette Del Chiaro at CALSA, and Omid Badgube doing rooftop storage and microinverters that are made to pair with rooftop storage. So good stuff at cesnrg.com. Please subscribe to the channel on YouTube. Give us a thumbs up. Share it with your friends. We need to grow the clean energy transition, as John and I pointed out on the show today. We have ambitious goals in Washington now with the Biden administration, but we actually need to double down on those goals. And that means hundreds of thousands of people need to get into the clean energy transition. So the more you support the show, the more you support the clean energy transition. It's a win-win. Thank you, John Weaver. Have a great day. And thanks to all of our listeners and followers. Let's grow solar and storage.